And there we go, we're live. Hey everybody, it is December 16th. And I just wanted to do a quick shout out, those regulars who kind of follow me. I had a major surgery last Friday and it went really well. I have a new right hip. So thank you for all the love and good energy that was sent. Really appreciate that. If you're new to this, we're glad you're here. Every Thursday we get to talk to amazing people around the world that have paddling in common, specifically stand-up paddling usually, but there's many offshoots of that, of course, and lovers of the water. Today's really special. I'm thrilled to be talking to Travis Suit from Florida. He has founded and grown an amazing, amazing event in so many ways. It's an ultra. It's in the U.S. It's between two countries, actually. It's called Crossing For Cystic Fibrosis. It has had a little bit of name change through time, and it just has the most amazing group that follow and participate. And it's for a really special cause. Along the way, I believe it was part of this that he formed a nonprofit, and we'll talk about all those things. And of course, his SUP journey, because it's always interesting to find out, you know, who these people are, stand up, and how this crossing came to be. So excited to have Travis on today. Really special guy. Hello, Travis.
Hello.
Great to see you and hear you, and so excited to talk about the story. I'm lucky enough to have met you. I think it's trade shows kind of early on when you were just getting going with your big event. But even before the event, somehow you found stand-up. Was it surfing because you're a Floridian, or was it flat water? How did SUP start for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And thank you so much for having me on. It really means the world. And I'm glad to hear you're recovering well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, you know, the journey for me as far as stand-up paddling and surfing really began with my daughter's diagnosis with cystic fibrosis. I grew up in South Florida, spent a lot of time at the beach, went out fishing with my dad a lot offshore. And never, because we didn't live close to the beach, I never really found a lot of time at the beach. But when Piper was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis when she was 4, at her first clinic appointment, they told us about this connection of this amazing discovery that surfers in Australia who had cystic fibrosis were showing amazing results for their breathing treatments and tests. And so when we learned about that, I mean, that was at that time after, you know, the first few weeks of learning about cystic fibrosis and her diagnosis, it was really an incredible gift to be given that the ocean and salt air and water could be so beneficial to her. And so at that time, you know, it was like, okay, what do I got to do? I just got to get her out on the water. So I borrowed a friend's recreational board, and she was little. So I just put her on the front and we paddled out. And in those early days, that was the beginning of my stand-up paddling. It was me and Piper, and, you know, we would be paddling in the intercoastal and around some of the islands, and she would just be using her 4-year-old imagination and telling these fairy tale stories and talking about mermaids. And, you know, she'd pick up a stick along the way and kind of help me paddle. And I just cherish those memories so much because in my down deep, you know, I was pretty heartbroken about her diagnosis. And to know that we were out there doing something that was helping her lungs and empowering her to live healthier was hugely important to me at that time.
Wow, that is amazing that the first appointment you made that connection, because I didn't know that about cystic fibrosis till much later in life, but did learn being on the other coast here. We've had some events where getting kids with cystic fibrosis in and around the water. So how great that you found out from the beginning, that you knew enough to and had a connection enough with the water from fishing and such, even if you didn't live there, to be bold enough to get her right out there and get on the water. But that is so sweet. I didn't know that that was together. You actually started stand-up paddling together when she was 4 years old. So Travis mentioned Piper. Piper's Angels Foundation is a nonprofit that you've formed kind of along the way. Did that come first, or did the event come first? How did these things kind of transpire?
Yeah, so when when we began paddling and I was getting involved in trying to understand what cystic fibrosis meant for Piper and the community, you know, it was really a roller coaster ride of emotions and a learning process. And I've been invited out to some cystic fibrosis events and was just kind of learning the landscape of what was going on. But my background was in event production and was in marketing and sales. And so, you know, I was falling in love with paddling more and more every day. And I was going to Barnes and Noble and picking up, you know, Stand Up Journal and other magazines and flipping through and seeing, you know, people out in Hawaii doing long distance crossings and voyages. And I was just so stoked about paddling, like getting out there. And that's what inspired the idea to paddle from the Bahamas to Florida. And I thought, wow, this could be a really cool thing to do for cystic fibrosis as an awareness, you know, driver and as a fundraiser. And that was the first idea that started it. And then it took me a couple of years to kind of get things organized around really planning it. But the first time we did it was in 2013. And there were 4 of us that were paddlers, and we had 2 support boats. So the crossing itself as a fundraiser and as an event started first. And then I really had only planned on doing it one time. I mean, it was really like a one and done, you know, it was like the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life. And, you know, but even back then I remember thinking, wow, you know, this would be much more enjoyable and fun to do it as a relay team. You know, I was thinking like, okay, well, but you know, Piper, there was a lot going on with Piper. And from the time she was 4 until she was 8, the doctors had been telling us, you know, you gotta be looking out because, you know, her lungs are in rough shape. She'd had pneumonia. She was very underweight and malnourished. And so they'd been telling us, look, you know, if we can't get her weight up, she's going to get a feeding tube. And so it was a really rough ride from 4 to 8. And when she turned 8, things kind of crashed. And she ended up in the hospital for several months of that year. She ended up with a long-term IV port for antibiotics. She ended up with a feeding tube. And that dramatically changed, you know, our lives and her lifestyle as a young girl. And it wasn't until then, and under the pressure of the treatments and the therapies, under the pressure of juggling schedules to just be with her there in the hospital, that's when it dawned on me that, you know, for a long time, all of the fundraising and awareness around cystic fibrosis has gone to drug research for medical therapies, which is awesome because there's some new drugs out there that are really helping to extend the lives of people with CF.
That's good to hear.
At the same time, there was kind of this void in the wake of all that medical success on just supporting the families. Like if my family, you know, and we're, you know, we're a solid family, right? Like I had somebody tell me when Piper was diagnosed, look, this is the kind of thing that either tears a family apart or brings them together. And in this case, it really brought our family together. And so we had rallied around Piper, but you know, there's single moms with kids with CF. There's all kinds of family situations that are very challenging and difficult. And it was at that time that the frustration and the kind of agitation around like something needs to be done to support these families more, because as I was looking out at what was going on, it was clear that there wasn't enough support. And that was the point and kind of the departure and the crossroads where I got to in my own personal journey with Piper and CF, that I decided, you know, along with the support of my family, hey, I want to look at doing something bigger here and try to create something that could create a sustainable and long-lasting impact for these families. And that's when we launched Piper's Angels Foundation.
Wow, so good.
That was
good
so
for you.
4 years after the first crossing. So we relaunched we you know, we looked at it and said, okay, well, what are we going to do as a fundraiser, as a way to kick this thing off? And we took the model of the first crossing from 2013 and we refigured it. We opened it up to the public. And then that in 2017, we launched it. and we had 34 paddlers in 10 boats and raised around 133,000 in fundraising. In 2018, it grew and we had 100 paddlers in 30 boats and
Wow.
raised around 285,000 in fundraising. And then in 2019, the number doubled to 200 paddlers. We had 80 boats and we raised around $675,000. And then the
Amazing.
pandemic hit.
Right. And then we've had that, which I'm sure is an extra scare because of respiratory issues and everything with CF. But wow, what an amazing story of the growth and your own journey and how it all got started. So there's kind of two sides to this because there is a seriousness and it's wonderful what you've been able to do. But of course, cystic fibrosis is a very serious disease, and how wonderful that your daughter Piper has you. How old is she now? Is she a teenager yet?
She's 14.
Oh,
So
how do these things happen?
it
But
goes by quick for sure.
yeah, beautiful young lady. And I'm sorry we can't share more pictures. I'd love to. Actually, you guys do such a great job with media on both sides, both, you know, the importance of this and the heartfelt side of it, but also the absolute stunning beauty of Bimini Island and starting in the dark and the drone shots that you have and everything. So maybe I can grab, I don't know, one of those short videos or something and put it on our Facebook group because I think people would just love to see that. So you kind of mentioned, let's talk about the participation side, and let's go with, as we come out of the pandemic, and that this will be potentially your biggest year ever. There's a big resurgence and interest. I wouldn't even say resurgence, kind of a coming together about really long distance events and interest in them. And I understand Chris Parker, who I interviewed a couple weeks ago, and you have gotten together and you're going to call it one of the ultras that are happening around the world. So that will bring even more attention to the wonderful event and the wonderful cause. So, wow, how are you gearing up for this? I didn't realize you had 200 in 2019. That's a lot of people
Yeah,
doing it.
it's a paddling event that turned into the largest recreational boating event in the Bahamas, which is very strange. You know, we're very fortunate in South Florida that we have an amazing boating community. And that's one thing I love about this event is just the community that comes together is incredible, because the community of this event is what's built the foundation. And you have people who love the ocean, right? And then you have both paddlers and boaters. And it's kind of this unique blend where they get to come together. And most boaters, they don't often get to use their boats for something purpose driven. It's normally for pleasure, for snorkeling, fishing, diving, and so it's really kind of come together in a beautiful way. But yeah, people, this is first and foremost, it's a big challenge, right? So for a lot of people, this isn't competitive. It's just a challenge that they can take on from a recreational perspective. It's a big one, 80 miles, whether you do it as a relay or whether you do it solo, it's the real deal. I mean, you're isolated out in the ocean for anywhere from 12 to 15 hours in the open ocean, and you're facing a lot of different conditions. You kind of go through this kaleidoscope of emotions, from leaving the beach in the dark and the intimidation of that, paddling through the night into the sunrise, and that hope of light, and knowing that you're 40, 50 miles in, but at the same time knowing that you're 40 miles, 50 miles still to go. And you see the buildings off Florida, you can start to see them, and you can see those buildings 25 miles offshore. So you still got a long ways to go. And as you get closer to Florida, you really start to feel the heat. It's like a convection oven, like,
Oh, interesting.
it starts to come off the land. And you really, I mean, I think I've heard people say it, but the final 10 miles are definitely sometimes the hardest, because you're really just pushed to your max, in terms of nutrition, hydration, everything, and but it's a great adventure. This event for us, as as you mentioned, CF it can have a very sad, heartbreaking side to it. And the color and the vibrancy and the life that paddling in the ocean brings to balance out kind of the dark side of CF is really what this event allows for, and creates that wave of hope and love and inspiration that it makes a huge impact altogether. We all get to kind of ride that wave together until June, and we have more registered paddlers now than we've ever had in December.
Already. I was just going
Yeah,
to say registration, I read, is open.
yeah.
So talk through that a little bit. You already have more paddlers registered. What does the relay look like? Like, let's get real specific about how many and how. I know you need the boat,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, so there's a competitive aspect to relay and a recreational. So recreational, you could have as many paddlers on your team as possible. So you could break up the paddling between 4 paddlers, 6 paddlers, 8 paddlers, depends on how big of a boat you have. For the competitive side, there's 2-person relay, 4-person relay. We have a lot of different categories that are available. And then the solo aspect. And then so you have solo competitive and you have the solo rec. Now, if you sign up as a recreational solo paddler, we actually provide the boat support, but you're going to get grouped with other paddlers that are, of a similar pace and skill set. That can be
Nice.
tricky,
Yeah.
but that's if somebody's coming from out of town, coming from Kansas, and they want to sign up and they don't have a way to recruit a boat down in South Florida, that's one option. For the relay, one of the fastest teams I've ever seen do it that was competitive was Team Blue Line and Flying Fish in 2019. And they had 4 teammates. They paddled they did 20-minute increments, and every 20 minutes they did a change out, and the boat has to be out of gear. And I don't want to give away their secrets, right? I don't think they would think it was a secret, but I mean, they were doing change outs under 15 seconds at the boat. So, boat's out of gear, paddler paddles up, paddles over one side, leash off, one paddler going over, the other paddler going over on the board and still paddling. And so, I mean, they finished in around 10.5 hours. And I mean,
That's amazing. Oop, I lost your audio for a second. Are you back?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Lost you there for a sec. So yeah, you were talking about the exchange and how quick that team was. Amazing.
Like
I want to
NASCAR,
give another shout out to, I think it was during the pandemic. Were you able to hold it? The young woman who was the first over the line solo, and it was a name I hadn't heard, and she sounds like she has an amazing story. I think you're kind of sharing it right now on your social media.
Yeah, so that was this past year, and she was new to paddling. She'd only been paddling for about a year, but she was a crossover athlete. She's a multi-time world champion skimboarder. Her name's Casey Kiernan, and she really kind of shocked the world down here because she paddled in with a smile after 80 miles, and she beat all the boys. And I mean, it was quite a stunning finish, because even after 80 miles of paddling, the top handful of athletes came in within 20 minutes of each other. So, she was doing real short breaks. She had a real positive attitude, and she really, trained hard. She had a very specific training regimen. She trained with the Flying Fish team, and she crushed it. I mean, it was amazing. It really was amazing to see, and I'm so proud of her for doing it.
Yeah. Well, how fantastic that you can do it in so many different ways: solo, relay, recreational, competitive, and congratulations that you already have such great signups. I really think people are looking for things like this, so I'm happy to help spread the word even more. It is something you have to plan ahead for if you don't happen to be local. I know you started very local. You started with just 4, like you said. You didn't even open it to the public. It was more like a gift to yourself, I would guess, to get to do that and do something for your daughter in a situation that must be so frustrating. But and again, you're crossing between 2 countries. I don't know if there's anything like that. That seems quite unique too.
And it's the Bermuda Triangle. So, people have seen some really interesting things out there. They've seen submarines, they've seen manta rays, they've seen sunfish on the surface, dolphins, sharks. I mean, you see it all. And yeah, Bimini in the Bahamas is some of the most beautiful water in the world to get a chance to paddle on. And so it's definitely as much as it is physical, it's a huge mental game. You know, there's I would say it's 70% mental. You know, so if there's anybody out there watching who would consider it, you know, if you're a I've seen beginner paddlers, literally like beginner paddlers who saw this event and said, I want to do that. And, you know, 6 months before the event, went out and bought a board and committed and started paddling, right? And it's one of the most beautiful things I've seen about this event is seeing people and getting to mentor people from never having been on the water to this transformation of them becoming a waterman or a waterwoman, and seeing them grow from a beginner to an intermediate, you know, over a year, and seeing that growth, and then them coming back. And that's one of the reasons we've had such we've had a great return rate of people coming back. So that's one of the reasons why, you know, we've got 80 registered participants at the moment, is for that reason. And we'd have to cap it at 200 just because that's the max number of boat slips and beds in Bimini. Like, we can't take more than that. So it's limited to that number of people. But we've also seen a lot of relay team participation. So when you have a relay team, that's 4 paddlers. They're all sharing a hotel and a boat. And then, so, you know, it quickly adds up.
Yeah. So planning ahead, and again, you have beautiful media, and it looks like lots of great information and everything about the different steps in the process. You mentioned just now that we talked about the boat. You do, of course, stay at one end. I find crossings fascinating. I think there's something special about going from one point to another. I participated only in relay form in a couple of different ones here, Catalina back to California, and Molokai to Oahu in Hawaii. And definitely have yours on my bucket list too. Probably the relay rather than the full 80 miles, even though I'm just amazed by so many people who are coming back again and again to these really long ones, and love the, like you said, you go through so much. I mean, doing something in a beautiful place for a great cause, and it just seems like the Ohana is absolutely amazing that you've built and created, and people want to be a part of something like that. So good to know that you will need to make a decision. It sounds like you probably will sell out if it's not even 2022. So it's the actual date is June what that you do the crossing?
It's the last week in June.
Last week of June. So it's almost, what, 7, 8 months out. And you already are halfway filled up. So something to think about and to look into. Do point out you have quite a few, like you said, I didn't realize you were a marketer yourself, but you did some rebranding a little bit. So it's Crossing, and is it the number 4 or 4CF? That's one of your Instagrams.
Yeah, X4CF, Crossing for CF. And yeah, the reason we rebranded a couple of years ago from Crossing for a Cure was because when we first did it in 2013, we were raising funds for the National Cystic Fibrosis Foundation before we created Piper's Angels. So our focus on innovative social services for the families shifted. You know, we are not raising money for a cure. We're raising money to directly impact the families on a day-to-day basis based on their needs. So that was the reason for the shift there. And this year, I'm really excited. We have a gentleman, Scott Johnson, who's our first double lung transplant paddler with cystic fibrosis. And we're actually making a short film documentary about his journey because of his relationship to the ocean and how it's empowered his life. And he's going to be paddling solo this year on Team Double or Nothing. I'll be paddling with him. I'm super excited. Amazing, amazing human being. In this past year, we had our first person with cystic fibrosis, Will Schluchter, actually make the full distance.
Wow.
Beach to beach, nonstop. We call that iron, 80 miles.
That's amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah. So I'm sure, yeah, that's a whole nother piece of this, and that those people who are living with it and learning. I think it's amazing that you rebranded and what the direction that you went, and it was before the pandemic, because the pandemic has brought out so much about the need for the mental side of it, the family side of it, you know, mental health going along with physical health and how much that affects us. So I'm sure in your journey, I would guess that getting out on the water has made a difference for you personally, and that, even though it's Piper with CF, um, do you are there things you love about stand-up paddleboarding or its connection that you've stuck with stand-up as the, it's the vessel that you're using, but still it's a pretty cool one.
Well, I love it all. I have since learned to surf and fallen in love with, prone surfing, stand-up surfing. I've gotten to paddle in OCs, and I want to eventually do the crossing in every kind of craft we can. We've had OC6s participate, OC1, OC2. We've had all kinds of crafts, dories, surf skis. So it's really neat to see the paddling community as a whole come out for it. Prone, which is insane to me that we have prone paddlers.
They love
But
crossings.
yeah, those are some crazy tough individuals. But yeah, a question people often have is, the logistics are a bit challenging with this event, right? Because you got to get there, got to get a boat, you got to go. So you're planning an adventure, right? You're planning a trip, a journey. But what I would say is a lot of people can be intimidated by two things. One, the planning and logistics, and two, the fundraising. We have never had one person that had any challenges with either hitting their fundraising goal or the logistics. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people who have maybe never fundraised as a part of an event, although it's a paddling event, not all paddling events have this fundraising component.
Right.
And so it's important for people, number one, to understand why the fundraising is important and what we use the funds for, right? So we've become one of the most impactful grassroots organizations in the country for cystic fibrosis. We have
Wonderful.
several programs that include scholarships and grants to directly help the families, as well as peer-to-peer support that we all have in our own personal role with the families and talking to families about sometimes very difficult situations, whether it's a new diagnosis or a family member who is in an active dying stage of CF. There's a lot of those issues that, just having somebody in their corner to talk to makes a huge difference with. And for the fundraising, we've had teams raise anywhere from, the minimum is $1,500, but all the way up to $110,000. And so a lot of people don't know this, and I want to share it because this is really a beautiful part of this that I love so much. Is we do a 50-50 split with nonprofits. So if there's a nonprofit out there that wants to leverage the event to paddle and fundraise, it's a turnkey fundraiser. And so as an example, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, they raise funds on behalf of the Police Athletic League. So we split the fundraising with them. We have a Lighthouse Dragons, the Jupiter Lighthouse Dragons cancer survivor team. It's an all-ladies team. And so we split the fundraising with them. So we've distributed $168,000 to 10 different nonprofits in 4 different countries over the last couple of years, just because we share the fundraising with them 50-50.
Oh, what a brilliant idea. And I didn't know about that.
Yeah, because everybody has, for us, CF is near and dear to our heart, but people have different reasons, their why is different. And so everybody's affected by something different. And we've gotten to learn a lot about other organizations that do amazing work just through that because of them signing up for the event. And there's a lot of paddling clubs that are actually 501c3s too. So paddling clubs like the Lighthouse Dragons, right? It's a paddling club that a lot of times paddling clubs need fundraising. So it's a good, easy way to fundraise for the club.
And you've got it all set up. Yeah. Amazing. Cool. Well, 2022, it's back. It's going to be, I was going to say bigger than ever, but it sounds like you've almost maxed already. As you said, there's only so many hotel rooms and so many boats. So 200. Although I guess if there's more relay teams, you might get even more people than you have before.
You could. And the only other way that we've heard some ideas, we've got such a great committee of people who support this event. We had a committee meeting last night. We had nearly 50 people.
Wow.
It's a committee meeting, so it's like, but the only way that I could see is if the event grew, we could break it into 2 weekends back to back and do a recreational weekend and then a competitive weekend. and then you could accommodate more paddlers. But the number one thing for us is safety. The Coast Guard is involved and we always submit our float plan, and we have a relationship to the Coast Guard. We have a safety and logistics team. We have a medical director for the event. It is by far the most important thing that we plan around is safety. And paddling is inherently most of the time slow and safe, and you're with a boat, but we do paddle in the dark. There are freighters in the Gulf Stream. There is wildlife, there's sun exposure, heat exposure. So there's factors that make it inherently have some risks, but we do everything we can to mitigate that to keep everybody safe. And knock on wood, we've had a great safe record so far, and we want to keep it that way.
Yeah. Well, that's a good possibility, but I know that from watching just clips, how even as it grows, how much the community loves each other and how strong it is and the bond that they have. So I can see why you don't want to split it up too, because people want to all be there for everything. I think it's amazing how many people support in other ways. So even if you don't participate as a paddler, it seems like, and maybe part of that 50 people who were on the committee last night, I'm guessing some of them aren't, that they serve different roles in helping make this work like clockwork, like it looks like it does. Oh, yeah. You have a fellow, Tanya from Germany, who's part of the 11 Cities Tour, another distance event, just hopped on and is listening. But you, if I can get off topic a bit, you have a growing family, and it looks like you have other exciting things happening in life, if you don't mind sharing. How are things going?
Everything's going great. So we're getting near. We have a baby boy on the way. And, we're a combined family. So my partner, Danny, we met. She was a volunteer with the foundation and a paddler. And she had a daughter the same age as Piper, Lucy. And so at all of our events, community events, Piper and Lucy were hanging out. And it just over time, we developed a friendship. And she also has a 10-year-old son. And so, we've integrated our families, and we were both, we debated, well, do we want to go for this? Is this something we want to try? And we both agreed that this could be a great addition to the family. And the girls are super excited. 2 14-year-old girls who are going to have a baby brother. And I love kids. Kids to me are the world. Their openness, their hearts, their just they're so beautiful, and what they bring is gifts of love to this world. And I could not be more excited and happy that I'm getting to have this opportunity again in life to be a dad again, in this way.
Well, very exciting. And that's neat that you have such a blended family. I didn't know that about Piper and Lucy. That makes it even extra special.
Yeah. It's interesting. Piper, she's really matured, and you see it with a lot with CF kids, because they do a lot of breathing treatments, right? As when they're younger. Piper's been through surgery. She's been through hospitalization. So she's been through it, and she's, wise beyond her years. But, somebody asked her recently in an interview regarding the Crossing and Piper's Angels, like, what does all this mean to you? And she said, well, it's amazing to be loved by so many people who I don't even know. And to me, that melted me. It's like that was anything and everything I could have ever asked for her to know what that means, community and family, and to feel that unconditional love. And for anybody out there who's watching, like, the whole goal of all of this is that, CF is a pretty challenging thing. And the only way it took me 5 years from the time Piper got diagnosed to really understand how much of a gift it could be. And the reason it's a gift is because if you can draw the inspiration out of it, if you can see the wisdom in it, and you can see how these people who have these types of afflictions are great teachers, and whether they're conscious of it or not, they bring so much into our lives that sharpens our blades, that makes you a better father, a better family member. And Piper has taught me so much. And, it's like, I just feel this, I feel this outpouring of love to want to share that. And her life and what she's here to teach us is so valuable, that just showing up for each other is so important. And we've all been there. We've all been in the hospital. We've all had somebody who was really hurting. And it's not, it doesn't have to be this big, long story. It can just simply be about showing up. And that's what this event really represents, is how we show up for each other, what CF is teaching us, and how we're bringing that to the world in our daily lives today, in this present moment, not tomorrow and not a year from now, but, how we're bringing that into our paddling and our training and in our communities and in our families. And it's just been such a transformative process to have a daughter with this disease. And I want to make sure that, she's empowered to the greatest ability, but also that, we as a collective, we see the value these people bring into the world, and we don't pity them and see them as a victim, but we see them as teachers, and we can learn so much from that. And,
Wow.
and that's what it's really about. And that's why when we're in Bimini, and the paddlers come from all over the country or the world, and we're standing on the beach in Bimini, and they're standing next to Piper, or they're standing next to Scott Johnson, who's getting ready to paddle across the ocean with somebody else's lungs.
Wow.
That's when it really hits you that, this commitment to the training, the paddling, the fundraising. You asked earlier, you said there's something about crossings. And I think I discovered recently what it is. I was reading about the psychology and the history of fire walking. Fire walking, like where you walk across coals?
Yeah.
So it's been used in all kinds of cultures and different events, like Tony Robbins uses it, right? So the psychology is that on a deep down level, we have those doubts and self-limiting beliefs. And there's something inherent to the moment that we make the commitment, we shift our state of consciousness into courage. And the moment we make that decision and shift into courage is what gets us to the line. It's not what takes us across the coals. It's what gets us there. But that's the important part of the psychology, is making the decision. So once you get to the beach, the paddling is just the paddling, but it's getting to that point. It's the shift in our own consciousness. It's rallying ourselves to have that courage to make the decision. And that's what's most important. And I love that. I love that.
That is inspirational. And thank you. I mean, you've just mentioned quite a few perspectives that are really amazing and special. And wow, what a journey that you have had. And it's so fantastic that you're able to share that. That is an interesting one, to get there, to get us to the line, the courage that it takes to get there. Love that. And love everything that you're doing with this event. So feel so lucky to get to talk to you, Travis, and so excited about what you've got going on in your personal life too, as well as prepping for this, probably the biggest year ever of Crossing for Cystic Fibrosis for Piper's Angels Foundation. So you have at least 3 different Instagrams, those of you who are listening, to follow. Just absolutely fantastic. Oh, a friend of mine here is saying, I applaud you as I know medical challenges of CF. She is a ER nurse.
Well, thank you. Thank you for what you do as an ER nurse, because that's huge. And I would say to anybody listening, and I share this all the time, if you don't know anybody with CF, do yourself a favor. Go online, go on Instagram, go on Facebook, start asking in your community, hey, you know anybody with cystic fibrosis? And connect with them, because I'll guarantee their story will change your life. It'll inspire you in some way. And I just, the greatest joy that I get in my life every day is connecting with these families. It's amazing what they bring to this world.
Well, and I'm sure you've done an amazing, connecting with you has blessed them in so many ways. So again, thank you for all you do and are doing. And I love the direction. I wasn't aware of the shift in where you're going. I think it's brilliant and needed, like you said, a gap that was missing, and working with the families. and such creative ideas that you've had, like the shared fundraising and all, should make this definitely a paddle. As much as it might look intimidating on the outside, Bimini to Florida, 80 miles on the water, so many great ways to do it as a relay. So there really is a place for anyone, and maybe they just want to volunteer and help you out with the event if they live close by. But it will be exciting to see how big it gets and how international. And I think again, you've done a fantastic job yourself getting the word out and getting people involved through the years. But thrilled it's still going on and still making a huge difference. And hopefully this will be the biggest fundraising year ever. And yeah, I mean, as we come out of things and can travel again, I'm definitely looking. Where in Florida are you located? Where do you land? And where's the closest airport?
Yeah, so Palm Beach International is the closest airport. We land at the city of Lake Worth Beach. Shout out to the city of Lake Worth Beach for allowing us and being a sponsor of the event so that we can have this beautiful beach and pier to land at. They've been a huge supporter and help. You know, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Celsius, who's our title sponsor. You know, this event gets a lot of cash sponsor support. It's the only way that we can do it. This event pays for itself, which is incredible because it's an expensive event to put on. And it's a big event, but we have so many beautiful people that step up as far as sponsorship. And yeah, people can participate as a crew, right? So they can crew, they can captain. Now, let me tell you, it's just as difficult to like idle across the Gulf Stream on a boat for 15 hours as a captain who's constantly looking over their shoulder and like being a guardian to these paddlers in the water. That's just as hard as paddling in my mind. I would rather be in the water for sure, you know? But, you know, we're very fortunate. The reason why this event has really grown is because of people just like you who have a big heart and who hear our story, hear Piper's story, and they're willing to share. You know, we don't have a marketing budget, right? So, you know, the media that's covered this event, that's shared our story, is what's driven the success of this and helped it grow. And without that, without this incredible paddle community, without the boating community, we wouldn't be where we are. And for us who are staff or volunteers, it's 100% every day, all day. There's not a time we're off. It's 24/7. So if people wonder why, wow, well, how has the event grown or how has the organization grown? It's because we've dedicated everything to this. You know, we're fully devoted to making this a world-class event, providing a world-class experience, and making sure that every single one of those people understand that when they're in our corner, they're in the corner of these CF families. It's no different than them standing there by the bedside when Piper's in the hospital than I am, because that's how we've gotten here, you know? So it really is a collective effort and community. And I just thank you, Kristen, for making this a special part of what you do and bringing a voice to the paddle community, because most people can participate on some level, right? But to have a voice, you know, what you're doing is advocating. And that's what we specialize in, is advocacy for these families. And that means, you know, you're willing to fight for the voice of a community. And the paddle community really, in my opinion, could have a bigger voice. It needs more people like you who can showcase these incredible people around the world who are doing things on the water, because the water community is so connected and heart-centric, you know, and it often goes overlooked, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But
Wow. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, Supconnect, because they let me do this. And it was supposed to be just a pandemic thing, but they said, as long as you can keep interviewing people. And I said, I'm loving it. Love doing this. So thank you. I do. And so I don't get choked up anymore, I'm going to talk about sort of the logistics of it. We like to ask tips, and you have started an event. And of course, there's the passion and all the beauty around it. But maybe some tips about if somebody wanted to start a stand-up paddle or paddle event of some sort, looking back now, are there some advice you could give that you did know then, or maybe didn't know?
yeah, if you want to start a paddle event, call me first and foremost. I've made myself available. I've had many calls with different paddle folks over the years who have done events and things. And yeah, I mean, we've learned a tremendous amount about the logistics. The crossing obviously presents many challenges, but I've been actually producing events for 17 years, and I have a love-hate relationship with events because, you know, it's like birthing a baby every time, right? It starts with a great idea, and then it grows and grows and grows, and the pressure's on, and it can become very stressful, right? But yeah, you know, my grandfather, who was an entrepreneur, said to me when I was younger, I asked him, like, what helped you be successful? And I mean, he wasn't like a major, you know, like he didn't have any big business or anything, but he ran small businesses. And he said, surround yourself with good people. And every time I've ever like been in a situation and seen like, wow, that person's energy is awesome, I
Yeah.
just grab them. I'm like, hey,
You're mine.
we got to do this, you know, like, you know, we'll figure this out, you know. And the other thing too is, you know, so having a great team is hugely important. But, you know, I think a lot of people miss out on what I think is fundamental to leadership. And that is that the most important thing you can do as a leader, and I'm totally hijacking this quote from some leadership guy somewhere, I don't remember who, but that you have to translate the vision into reality for people. So, you know, it's not even today, right? We're 5 years into Piper's Angels. So it's like you take that and you put it in the filing cabinet. And right now, today is year one, right? So what's the next 5 years? Well, for us, our vision is to become the most impactful grassroots organization in the world for cystic fibrosis.
Wow.
That's the vision. So if you can take that vision, whether it's like a birthday party or a wedding or a paddle event, and you can share it with people to get their buy-in so they can see what you're seeing, that collective vision really helps manifest things in a very quick way. I mean, it really ramps up the process of the co-creation. And so sharing the vision and doing it, and you have to be, it's kind of easy for somebody like me because I'm shameless about CF. Because once you've, you know, the biggest ego death I ever had was hearing Piper say, "Daddy, my lungs are burning." And when that happened, and I realized I don't know what that feels like. You know, I promised myself that day I would never let myself get in the way of asking people for something so I could support these families. You know, because I even back then had like this, oh, well, you know, I don't know if I feel comfortable asking people for money. Screw that. If you want to do something, you got to blast through that barrier. You got to, and that's what we take that inspiration from the CF community to be bold in the face of fear. We use that for the crossing because that's what it is, right? It's like you have to, the fear is going to be there, right? There's going to be some illusion of some story that you can't do it or that you have some limit to it, but you have to really push yourself into that. And it doesn't matter how big an event you're going to produce. You really got to, if you're going to build a team and you're going to create an event or you're going to create anything, you've got to be bold. You've got to share that vision because it's the only way people are going to understand what you're trying to attempt to do on any entrepreneurial level.
Oh, what great advice. And you have done a beautiful job of sharing your vision and translating it and making it reality. And I love that you're resetting and your vision has grown, I would guess, over time on what you're able to do and transformed. And the people thing, I'm so 100% with you. I love though, I've never really thought about that. When you really, you know, you meet somebody sometimes and you just love their energy. I agree. Grab them.
Yeah.
I've never really thought about that. I'm going to start doing that. Like
Yeah.
I need to, you know, we need to stay connected and we need to do something together. That's great. And that's true. And we do whatever, we kind of joke about the chicken and the egg. For some reason, there's a lot of great people in paddling. And, you know, were they great people attracted to the water, or does the water turn people into great people? Maybe some of both is kind of what most people say, but it sure seems like we have a higher percentage than in the normal population of wonderful people that love the ocean and what we do and have big hearts, like you said, and aren't we lucky to
Yeah.
be a part of that?
Yeah. We live in a beautiful world, and it really, we have so much to be grateful for, and to see the beauty in everything. And that's what CF has taught us. And I hope to share that, you know, because it's like to me, it's the only way to live at this point. You know, it's so right there, you know. And I think everybody, sees that even the world and the global community is on the cusp of something big. You know, they really see how love, right? They see, you know, and there's a lot of conditioned states and a lot of conditioned aspects to people's psychology that can prevent them from expressing that or sharing that or opening their heart to that. But it's fundamental to us, to every inherent, you know, aspect of what we are, fundamental nature. So it's like, if we can all just, you know, really get with that, you know, it's there.
I love that. Well, I think we might wrap it up on that beautiful note of hope and inspiration, right, for how things might be. And very thrilled to get to catch up with you about the event and learn more details about the event, about Piper, about your happy growing family. How about that? Your fourth child is coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
A big family that you have built. Both that actual family and the new baby on the way, and also the beautiful family that you have around Crossing for Cystic Fibrosis. Spit it out, blah.
Yeah. It's hard to say. That's why we say CF. You know, it's like, it definitely it's a challenge, but you know, it's a weird thing. You know, CF it's a strange name, so people often shy away from asking about it because they're ignorant to it. You know, it's not like diabetes or cancer where people know what that means. You know, so that's part of the challenge we have, is to kind of break through that and educate people. So, but for anybody out there, anybody who's tuned in, thank you to everybody. Thank you to Supconnect. Thank you, Kristen. And please, if you have any questions, if you have, look, one thing I've noticed about paddlers over the years, if I'm talking to a paddler, I can see it in their eyes. You can see it. It's like this little twinkle. You can see it. I can see it in your eyes. It's like, you know, when somebody, it's going off in their head, they can see themselves doing it. And it's like, it's registering, you know, and you're like, oh yeah, I can see it. You're thinking about it. You know, if somebody out there is thinking about it, do it, sign up, go for it. You know, like make it happen, because one, we never know what the weather's going to be like, and every year is different, but you know, now's the time. You know, you got to live. Like, life is shorter for some than others, and why not now? You know, it's like,
yeah.
I liken it to that movie 300. You know, the Spartans.
Oh yeah.
So it's our 200. We have 200 paddlers. That's it. You know, we go out there every year. We go together, and that's our 200. So.
Great. Well, amazing what's going on, and we will stay in touch. A reminder to everybody, this was live, but if your friends missed it, it's recorded immediately on Supconnect's IGTV. And then in the next couple days, we'll get it up on Supconnect's YouTube and also on KT Outside, my YouTube channel, so you can watch the recording. But also we have that Facebook group, and I'll put some pictures and your different social media links, because I bet there's some people listening who are going to be new first-timers at the end of June doing the crossing.
It's life-changing.
Yes. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you, Kristen.
Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really.
And sharing your heart. So great. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.